Yes, in both public and private sectors, an announcement by the Labour Relations Minister designate Ignatius Bafwewa that caused some members of the Appointments Committee to demand proof of the numbers.
The last time reported on was in September 2020, and then the figure was around 3 million jobs.
How was the 3 million jobs created and the distribution?
I will make the details available to the committee.
Public sector or private sector or a combination of the two?
Combination of all.
Is it that between August and September, you created additional 1 million jobs?
I will be prepared to defend the 3 million at any point in time.
Tonight, we interrogate the claims and embark on a hunt for these jobs, as well as the jobs lost as a result of the banking sector collapse.
It was within the vicinity of 3,000.
3,000?
Yeah.
Banking sector job losses?
Yes.
It probably must be more than that, Minister Designate.
It will be important to get the correct details. And there also may be had the job losses as a result of COVID.
The battle of job figures here on Top Story, brought to you by Vodafone. The future is exciting. Ready? Gastem is the nation's builder. And Bell Aqua. If we must drink water, it must be Bell Aqua mineral water. I am MFR Powell. And tonight, 3 million jobs created between the year 2017 and September 2020. That's according to the Minister Designate for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafwewa. But this announcement raised a few eyebrows at his vetting, causing some members of Parliament's Appointments Committee to demand proof of the creation of these jobs. This is what transpired.
On the number of jobs, yes, it is true. On 1st May 2018, I indicated that the government of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo had created approximately 1 million jobs. And even though I don't have the exact figures for end of 2020, the last time we reported on was in September 2020, and then the figure was around 3 million jobs. 3 million jobs. Yes.
Minister Nominee, thank you. How was the 3 million jobs created and the distribution? You want to share the statistics with us, sector by sector? Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Chair, I will make the details available to the committee when I get back to you. But I think that I have, on a number of occasions, even come to this House and have given these figures out already. But if still it is the pleasure of the committee to have the details, I'm more than willing to.
And Chairman, another clarification: the 3 million jobs, public sector or private sector, or a combination of the two?
Combination of all.
Mr. Chairman, the nominee said in September the government has created 3 million jobs. On 13th August, the Vice President also said that the government has created 2 million jobs. 13th August, that was what the Vice President said, that the government has created 2 million jobs. And you're also saying that in September, you have created 3 million jobs. Is it that between August and September, you created additional 1 million jobs?
Well, I don't know, and I'm not aware of what you're talking of, but I have officially turned out the 3 million jobs, and I will be prepared to defend the 3 million at any point in time, that when I get the opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, in an answer to an earlier question about the employment statistics, he did promise that he was going to furnish this committee with the details. But I'm curious to know how this data, especially when he says both private and public, how these data are collected, how you collect this data.
You see, Honorable Chair, employment activity is multi-sectorial. You have almost every ministry creating jobs here or there. So eventually what we do is that we write to the various sectors for them to provide us with information. So what we do is we collect all this information and put them together and transmit same to the public. So that's what we do.
Well, what about the private? Because with the public, I know, with the public sector, yes, that may be easy. What about the private?
Honorable Chair, by law, every person engaged to work must be entitled to SNIT payment. So at any point in time, if you want such information, you can easily go to SNIT and then they will provide you with that.
Are you saying that you normally pick this information from the private sector, from SNIT data? Is that how you collect those data from the private sector?
It's one of my prime sources of information.
But you know that will not, then that may not be accurate, because you may have persons that have been engaged by a company or a private or any persons, but may not immediately start paying SNIT. Sometimes years before that is done, even though it's against the law. So if you are just using data from SNIT, don't you agree with me that it may not give you the most accurate information?
I partly will agree with you, but that is the best we can have for the moment, because the level of informality in the country is very high.
And this 3 million jobs created is something we'll be interrogating further shortly. But there was a question on the 2017 mass transfer of workers of Youth and Employment Agency without their transfer grant. Here was his response.
Why was there a massive transfer of this permanent staff in 2017 across the country?
Transfers sometimes are management tools. It depends on what management requires of a particular worker. So management, in their own wisdom, will decide that this person will be good working at this place or the other.
But it was massive across the country. Is that normal?
Well, I cannot think for management, but I think that, as I indicated earlier on, I am convinced that transfers are management tools.
Are you aware that when those transfers happened, those who were transferred were not given transfer grants?
It has not come to my notice.
Will you investigate this and get the necessary actions to be taken?
If within their conditions of service, such persons merit transfer grants, why not? It should be paid to them. But if it is not something within their condition of service, then perhaps we have to also be very careful not to implant something which is already not in the organization's scheme.
Now, could you imagine transferring someone, say, from Accra to Boga, and you could imagine that it will not be part of the condition of service for that person to be paid transfer grant?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Now, unfortunately, this is an agency-related issue. Yes, I have a supervisory role so far as the agency is concerned, but I might not be privy to every minute thing in their condition of service. But as I indicated, if it is within their condition of service, then they should be paid such sums.
Now, still on jobs, the minister-designate also revealed that about 3,000 jobs only were lost during the banking sector cleanup.
I think I once spoke on that. So when I go back, I can easily make a check on that. And it was within the vicinity of 3,000.
Chairman, what thousand? 3,000?
Yeah.
Banking sector job losses?
Yes.
It probably must be more than that, Minister Designate.
Pardon?
I say it probably should be more than that.
Yeah, that's why I said that I remember I've made a public statement on that before. So I will want to revert and actually get the exact figure. But if my memory serves me right, it was within the vicinity of 3.
Job losses following the cleanup of the banking sector is estimated at 3,000 jobs.
Net, yes.
Thank you.
Well, it will be important to get the correct details, because I know at least one institution alone employed more than 3,000 workers. So you may want to perhaps give us the records, and also maybe add the job losses as a result of COVID, so we know how many jobs have been lost of COVID.
Excerpts of what transpired at the Parliament's Appointments Committee today when the Minister Designate for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafwewa, appeared before it. 3 million jobs created between the year 2017 and September 2020. And if you listen to him carefully, you heard him say that he's prepared to defend the 3 million jobs at any point in time. But he wasn't prepared to do so tonight on Top Story when I contacted him. But let's speak to a member of the Appointments Committee, Mr. Samson Ahi. In fact, he posed that question too. Thank you very much for your time here on Top Story, sir. First off, do we now have the breakdown of the 3 million jobs provided to the committee because you asked for it? Hello, good evening, Mr. Ahi.
Yeah, hello. The line is very thin. I can't hear you.
It isn't much better now. I'll try again. I'll speak up louder now. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay, so I'm asking, first of all, do you have the breakdown of the 3 million jobs provided to the committee now because he promised to do so?
No, not yet. I think I'm sure he will provide it to the clerk. He said by the close of day, so we don't have it yet.
Okay, so by close of day, we're expecting that breakdown. But is it something you are willing to travel all lengths to get a copy of, or is just business as usual, or just a show for the cameras?
No, I think it will be in the interest of the minister to make that information available to the committee because its approval will be hinged on his ability to submit that document to the committee, because that will be his approval will be on the condition that he submits that document. If he hasn't submitted that document, I'm not sure who will give him the approval.
That's interesting.
So it will be in the interest of the minister to do that, because if you follow the proceedings, in May 1st, 2018, the minister addressed Ghanaians and said that they have created, another government has created 1 million jobs. And so I tried to find out how many jobs they have created at the end of 2020. And he was emphatic that they have created 3 million jobs. And I tried to find out from him because in August 13, 2020, the Vice President, Alhaji Bawumia, said that another government had created 2 million jobs. And so it was strange to me that if the Vice President could say that in August 13, 2020, the government has created 2 million jobs. And so from August, September, October, November, December, they created additional 1 million jobs. That makes it 3 million jobs. So I think we will need the information to get a breakdown so that it will guide us going forward as to whether or not we should approve the minister, because I think there's some contradictory statements or figures trending out there. Because the Vice President is saying one figure, the minister was also saying another figure. And in fact, even in the budget that they submitted to Parliament in 2020, the ministers said that they have created 2.7 million jobs. Mm-hmm. That was the budget. But that one, he tried to explain that it was up to the third quarter. And so the difference is accounted for in the last quarter, the fourth quarter. So definitely we will need the information that he himself promised to make it available to the committee for our consideration.
But it's interesting that you are hinging the approval of this nominee on the provision of this particular document, because that's not the only document he promised to provide to the committee. There was also a document on the job losses that he was also going to give you. But this decision that you talk about, is it a collective decision or just your thoughts?
I can't hear you.
I'm saying that it's interesting that you say that his approval will be hinged on the provision of this particular document on the 3 million jobs provided. I'm asking that this is not the only document he promised to provide to your committee, and that this decision that you talk about, is it collective or just your thoughts?
difficult to hear you.
Unfortunately, I'll speak up again, but it appears. Can you hear me now, Mr. Ahi?
Yeah, I think I can hear you now.
Okay, so I'm asking if the decision you talk about to approve him or not is dependent on this provision of this document of the 3 million jobs. Is it a collective decision of the committee or just your thoughts?
They just say that its approval will be on condition that he submits the documents to the committee.
Exactly, and I'm asking if it's a collective decision of that committee or just your thoughts.
It's connected to what?
Okay, so we'd have to try and re-establish connection to Mr. Samson Ahi. It's difficult for him to hear us at this point, but you heard him say that the committee, that approval of the minister designate for labor relations and employment, Mr. Ignatius Bafwewa, will be dependent on his provision of the breakdown of the 3 million jobs created between 2017 and September 2020. There have been some discrepancies, and he posed that question, Mr. Samson, he posed that question to Mr. Ignatius Bafwewa. And for him, on the 13th of August, the Vice President, Dr. Baumia, mentioned that 2 million jobs had been created back then. So if you heard their interaction, he's wondering if in August 2020, that same year, there was an announcement that 2 million jobs had been created. Between August and September, he's wondering if 1 million additional jobs had been created, making it 3 million jobs, because that's the latest figure that Mr. Ignatius Bafwewa is giving to the Appointments Committee. And so they have concerns about that. You also heard the minority chief whip, for instance, and then the minority leader also posed those questions, wondering if indeed that's the number of jobs created, which sector, which agencies, and then how that data was collected are some of the concerns that were raised. So we'll try again. It appears we have Mr. Samson Ahi back on the line. Also, we'll be engaging an industrial relations practitioner, Mr. Mohammed Afum, also on this particular issue. Mr. Ahi, we'll try again and see if you can hear us at this point. But okay, overall, from the answers provided to that particular question of yours, were you convinced by the responses given by the nominee?
No, I was not convinced. I realized that the minister was just trying to throw figures out there because as I said earlier, in May 2018, he said they have created 1 million jobs. And in 2020, according to him, by September, they have created 3 million jobs. Meanwhile, the Vice President in August also said that they have created 2 million jobs. So between what the minister said and what the Vice President said, you could see clearly that from August, 4 months, you can't create 1 million jobs. And so either the Vice President was misinformed for him to say that they have created 2 million jobs, for us it was 3 million jobs, or the minister was not telling Ghanaians the truth. So if you look at the two figures, clearly there is a contradiction there. And that is why we are requesting for the further better particulars so we can follow and then understand what the minister was trying to do. And getting the information will also make us know what constitutes the jobs that they created, the private sector component of it, and then the public sector component of it, so that we will understand what actually happened. Because if you look at even the budget in 2020 was talking about the fact that planting for food and jobs, they created 1.8 million jobs. So we clearly have to get the information to actually understand what the minister was trying to do. But I was not convinced at all.
Okay, but going by some of the figures that you're putting out, planting for food for jobs alone gave us 1.8 million. So is it not possible that between August and September, he's been telling you that he has the official figures and this is what he has at the last count? Is it not possible for that to happen within a month?
Yeah, and that would create a lot of problems because they describe it as farmer-based job creation. That is, in the villages, a peasant farmer can engage somebody in a day, which we describe as by day. You understand? So according to the statistics that they have provided, even when we were engaged by the worker, they account it as that the fact that they have created jobs in the Planting for Food and Jobs project. Certainly, that cannot be a job creation. But they have counted all these things. And so even if somebody engages some laborers to clear an acres of land for them, 1 or 2 acres, they factor it as job creation. Clearly, that cannot constitute job creation. Okay. And so that is why we want to see the details to understand what actually happened.
Okay, but just before I let you off, the question that we're struggling for you to hear is that you mentioned earlier that Mr. Bafwewa's nomination will not be approved until he provides this document for the breakdown of the 3 million. And I was asking earlier, I know that the committee meets after each session, and I'm asking if it's a collective decision or it's just your thoughts.
The committee has done what?
Okay, Mr. Samson Ahi, it looks like that particular question he's unable to hear. But let me bring in Mr. Mohammed Afum. He's the Industrial Relations Practitioner, and thankfully he joins us on this and other happenings at the Appointments Committee sitting today. 3 million jobs, and that's got a lot of tongue wagging on this particular amount of job, number of jobs created within 2017 to 2020. We're grateful for your time here on Top Stories. So you've heard the breakdown. We are yet, you've heard the figures, but we are yet to get the total breakdown, and that document will be provided to Parliament, we're told. But I'm itching to hear your thoughts on this particular issue. So it appears we don't have Mr. Mohammed Afum just yet on the line, but we're struggling to raise him. We'll just raise him shortly, and then we'll get all the details, because there have been concerns about how these figures are generated and who or which institutions generate these figures. And also the private agencies' data, is it included in this? These are questions that came up earlier. This farmer-based, jobs that have been created, the sustainability issues comes up, feasibility, and these jobs created, do they actually provide social protection for these workers? These are some of the issues that have been raised, and these are questions also that were posed by members of the Appointments Committee when they were struggling to grapple with the figures that were put out by the Minister Designate. I must say also that we contacted him, even though he says he's willing to defend the 3 million jobs at any point in time, but he wasn't prepared to do so tonight on Top Story when I actually contacted him for more details on this. But Mr. Mohammed Afum joins us, thankfully. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Afum. So you've heard the number of jobs that have been created as put out by the Minister Designate for the sector. Your thoughts on this?
Thank you very much for having me. This is not the first time that a minister in a government has told the nation about the number of jobs that have been created. I do recall that some time back, Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, during, I think, the first term of President Mahama's administration, stated that he has created 6 million jobs. So it is not surprising that Mr. Bafwewa is also saying that during the first term in office, they created 3 million jobs. Well, it's an achievement, but then it's interesting to know that most of the time, these figures, become shrouded in clouds of suspicion. First and foremost, because of how were these figures compiled? From what sources? We want to ask whether these are figures compiled by the Statistical Service, Labour Department, or from private and public institutions who recruit and then they send their returns to the Labour Department or the Ministry. Or it also includes workers in the informal sector, who, when they are pushed from the public sector, move in to scrape a living. Again, are they from SNIT? Because the law in this country states that every employee must be registered with SNIT so that during his retirement, he can enjoy a retirement a package, a retirement salary. But if you look at the SNIT website now, they say that after July 2020, the number of active members is 1.6 million. So, which means that since 1972, when the SNIT was established, active members who contribute is 1.6 million workers. Does it mean then that these figures one expects that almost all of them should be registered with the state so that they can enjoy a retirement package when they go on retirement. So these are some of the issues that create a lot of doubt, on the figures that are brought up by public officers when they talk of the jobs that they are creating. Again, these figures, do they include those who have jobs, those who have exited their public employment through resignation, through redundancy, or close down of factories? Again, these figures also fail to provide the number of workers who have been created, the professionals, the technicians, the artisans. So these are issues that need to further interrogation, and we need to also find out and establish, mechanisms for compiling data on job creation and job losses, so that maybe in every quarter the government could come out with the jobs that it has created and the jobs that have also been lost. Again, you say jobs are created. What is the returns that come from the private employment agency, who are by law required to submit their returns on a monthly basis to the Labour Department? All these things, the minister is silent and all these things. So how does he convince the Ghanaians that these 3 million jobs are real?
So these are pointers for you, indeed, if he's supposed to give us that breakdown or provide the breakdown to Parliament. These are pointers. These are things you would want to see in that particular breakdown. But there have been questions also about sustainability or feasibility of these jobs. We heard earlier that the MP raised concerns about farmer-based and whether indeed these jobs created, do they actually provide social protection for these workers? Are these also of concern to you?
They are, because, they are. Because this data have also stated whether the jobs are permanent jobs, whether they are fixed-term employment contracts, like road construction, like building construction, which are for specific periods, 2 or 3 years, or whether they are casual workers who exit permanent employment, they go get a container somewhere, and start eking out and living somewhere. Are these the type of jobs that we are talking about?
Okay.
Decent jobs that have social protection, jobs that will provide employment income for those who, when they retire, or they are just ordinary jobs.
But Mr. Afun, some will say that jobs are jobs. Must it necessarily be decent?
Jobs are jobs, but they also have to be sustainable and provide what we call social protection. Every worker will have to retire at the age of 60. What happens to him? Is he going to enjoy retirement income, or is he going to be left at the mercy of, philanthropists? These are issues that we need to address as when you are talking of job creation.
Okay. But finally, and briefly, just before I let you off, the issue about the jobs lost during the banking sector cleanup, the minister, off the top of his head, puts that figure at 3,000. Do you think, from what you've seen or what you've heard, that is accurate?
Again, it boils down to how these figures are compiled. And the labor law requires that when there's going to be a redundancy, the number of workers who are going to be laid off, their categories must be compiled and submitted to the chief labor officer. This helps us to compile a list of those who are exiting employment through redundancy or close down or layoff. Now, in the absence of these figures submitted by the various institutions or organizations to Labor Department, it will be very difficult to believe a figure that was put up, as 3,000 people haven't lost their jobs through banking sector cleanup.
Well, Mr. Mohamed Afun, thank you so much. We'll leave it here. He's an industrial relations analyst, and then speaking to us on these issues, or the issues that came up today at the Appointments Committee. 3 million jobs created, and then also 3,000 jobs lost as a result of the banking sector collapse. I'm sure you're still talking about it. You can tweet at us. Also, leave your comments on our social media platforms. We'll take them during Newsnight as well. That starts in a bit.
Kweku, I swear I did what? I forgot my boss say in client come, but I don't get credit on my phone. I go use your phone.
I'm laughing like killer.
In this day and age, your excuse for not making that call is that you don't have credit. Oh, then you are not a Vodafone customer. Because you get a boozing 500% bonus anytime you buy credit via Vodafone Cash or Vodafone Credit Transfer. It's like you didn't hear me well. 100%.